Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of POZ at Home. I'm Liz Highleyman, and I'm the science editor for POZ. And today we'll be discussing lipodystrophy, or abnormal body fat changes, which are a concern for many people living with HIV. Our guests today will be Tim Horn and Lillibeth Gonzalez. First, some housekeeping. First, we'll hear from Tim, and then we'll hear from Lillibeth, and then we'll bring them back, both back for questions. So to ask a question, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can use the chat feature. So first up, we have Tim Horn. Tim is the director of Healthcare Access Team at Nestad, where he works to ensure fair pricing and equitable access to medications for people living with HIV and at risk for HIV and hepatitis C. Tim has worked on HIV treatment and prevention research and advocacy since 1992, and he's the former president and editor-in-chief of AIDSmeds.com, a sister site of POZ.com. Hi, Tim. How are you today?
Very good. Hi, Liz. Good evening and afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and well in these very crazy times.
I know. They are crazy times. So why don't we just start out with the basics? What actually is lipodystrophy? What's the simple explanation for it?
Okay. Well, like anything, there really is no simple explanation. And like anything, it's always good to sort of put some historical context in this. So, we really first learned about lipodystrophy in the late 1990s, which was really just a sort of a pivotal, critical time in our treatment history and care. And that, we had a number of new drugs, we had a number of new classes of drugs, and that when those new drugs were used in combination with some of the older drugs, they really had a demonstrable effect on HIV. So we saw that viral loads were going undetectable. We saw that CD4 cell counts were improving, often markedly, and the risk of AIDS-related illnesses and death, started to diminish, significantly. But it was at this time we also started to see an unanticipated adverse effect of HIV treatment, including lipodystrophy. So when we're thinking about lipodystrophy, there are really two different types of abnormal body fat changes. So the first is lipoatrophy, and this is really the loss of fat below the skin, or as it's known as subcutaneous fat. And this can lead to sunken cheeks. It can lead to a loss of fat, around the temples, and sometimes around like the nasolabial folds, or those folds around the nose. It can also deplete, fat in the arms and in the legs and even the buttocks. Now, there's also lipohypertrophy, or fat gain. And the fat that we're talking about, here is visceral fat, or fat that is really deep inside of the body. And this buildup of fat, can cause the belly area to look enlarged or distended, and is often very hard to the touch. What's more, this buildup of fat, can affect internal organs, such as the liver, and is often associated with cardiovascular disease and diabetes.
Thank you, Tim. So how can someone tell if they have lipohypertrophy or sort of hard belly fat gain versus simply being overweight?
Okay, well, really, one of the tried and true sort of methods there is the sort of like, pinch and inch test, which is like, if you were concerned about, belly fat, if you're concerned about, sort of like, an enlargement of the abdominal area. So, the first thing to do is just to see if you can pinch that. And if you can pinch it, and if it's soft, and if it's squishy, yeah, then what we're talking about there is we're really talking about a buildup of like normal fat, or again, sort of subcutaneous fat that's beneath the skin but around the belly, or essentially love handles. Mm-hmm. And that's really not going to measure visceral fat, which is really going to cause the abdominal area to feel sort of like to feel dense and to feel hard, and is really just going to appear distended. So in this case, it's going to be very important. And anytime there is any sort of like body change, is to bring this up with your healthcare provider, and she or he can certainly perform a physical exam and really confirm if it feels hard, if it feels dense. and also order things like you just actually check the your waist circumference, compared to your hip circumference. That is one of the sort of like the hallmark features of lipohypertrophy, as well as ordering CT scans just to really see what's happening with the fat, sort of deep within the body.
Great, thank you, Tim. And you mentioned the risk for cardiovascular disease and the buildup of fat around the liver. What kind of consequences can, I guess especially I'm interested in fatty liver, what kind of consequences can that lead to?
Well, it's just like with fat around the liver. I mean, this can cause something that's literally called fatty liver disease. And then, very often, I mean, fatty liver disease, or if there's a buildup of fat around the liver, it doesn't really have any untoward, effects. However, in some cases, when that fat does really build up, like around the liver and sometimes in the liver, and you do experience fatty liver disease, that can certainly cause the liver to decrease its function, and can very often cause, symptoms and sort of like complications that are very similar to what we see in hepatitis.
So it sounds like that sort of might be a problem for people that have HIV and hepatitis C or hepatitis B in addition.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to if you have lipohypertrophy, I'm never going to pronounce that right. If you have fat gain, what might you do to manage it, both lifestyle changes and any medications that one might use?
Oh, absolutely. So I think that, very often, it's like diet and exercise, really are just like, they are just an invaluable sort of like, non-pharmaceutical intervention that we have available. And that, when we are talking about like a buildup of fat, sort of like that's just below the skin or around the belly, then there's certainly diet and exercise really are the standards for managing that. For fat that's deep within the belly, or that visceral fat, then your diet and exercise really might have some limitations. So in those cases, I might be looking at some of the more pharmacologic interventions. And one that we do, that's been approved, specifically for, excess abdominal fat related to lipodystrophy is Egrifta. And another product that is available for lipodystrophy is Serostim. However, that is not approved for lipodystrophy, and most likely has some more side effects compared to Egrifta.
Okay, and I think I read recently that there's a new formulation of Egrifta out. I guess that's easier to use. It has to,
Yes.
drug that has to be injected under the skin of the belly.
Yeah, and it's just the Egrifta SV. I mean, one thing that's great about that, it doesn't require refrigeration like the older product, and it has it's a multi-vial formulation as well. So it's just much easier to ship, much easier to pick up, and much easier to handle.
Okay, well, Tim, thank you. That was very great background information. So soon we will come back with Lillibeth, but first we're going to have a brief commercial break. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Next up, as I said, we're going to have Lillibeth Gonzalez. And let me remind you that after Lillibeth speaks, we're going to bring both her and Tim back so you can ask them both questions. And again, you can do that by clicking in that Q&A box down there at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So welcome, Lillibeth.
Hello.
Lillibeth has worked as a community health educator at GMHC since 2006, and her work includes empowering and educating people living with HIV, hosting community forums on HIV and aging, safer sex, and other topics, as well as delivering support services to at-risk communities of color. She's dedicated to ending HIV stigma in the Latino community and to uplifting women to take control of their sexual health. She's an NMAC HIV 50 plus strong and healthy scholar, and she runs the Facebook group Thriving at 50 and Beyond for people living with HIV. So hi, and how are you doing, Lillibeth?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. So please tell us a little bit about your experience as someone who's lived with HIV for almost 30 years. What was that What has that been like for you?
Well, it has been, I've had my trials and my tribulations. It hasn't been an easy ride, but I've learned to embrace it and just continue changing my lifestyle and my behaviors as I'm aging. I've been aging with HIV. It's been 28 years now that I've been living with an AIDS diagnosis. I celebrated my HIV anniversary on June 2nd,
Well,
28.
congratulations, I think.
I had zero T cells when I was diagnosed. Today I have 1,030. My viral load was in the millions. Today I've been undetectable for 13 years due to my HIV treatment. I
You're
will,
a real testament to the importance of staying on treatment and how well it can work. That's
yes,
great.
I found myself, I had TB, neuropathy, lipoatrophy, facial wasting, lipodystrophy, bone loss, osteoporosis. I have GI issues, HIV enteropathy, cognitive function.
You probably, having lived with HIV that long, you probably used some of those older drugs Tim mentioned that were associated with lipoatrophy in the face and that aren't used very much anymore, but with
Right.
some people, they don't, it doesn't always go away.
Yeah. Right. I believe it, the doctor told me it was the Variat who caused my lipodystrophy. There were very numerous number of treatments.
Some of the very old ones, that was a common side effect. And sometimes even in people living with HIV today, they think it, it kind of gives away that they're a long-term survivor, the fact that they still have appearance of lipoatrophy in their face. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experience with lipodystrophy or fat gain, and what has that been like for you?
Okay, it's been very challenging. I didn't know I had lipodystrophy. I just thought it was aging, because I saw my mother was very slim and then she got bigger as she was aging. So I really thought it was aging until my doctor told me it was visceral adipose tissue. So I said, what is that? So I went home, I researched, I took a photo of it, and I would look at it every day and said, Lily, that's what you have. You're not getting fat because you have to work a lot with your mental mind and body connection. So when he said I had adipose tissue, I said, what is that? So that's when he said, it's lipodystrophy, it's a fat distribution. I happen to have it on my belly. Some people get it on the bottom, on the neck. Some get it on the back of the neck. They used to call it the buffalo hump.
I remember that. Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah. I got it on my belly. And so I had to embrace it. I had to change my way of thinking because I was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want anyone to see me due to the fact that my arms and my legs were very slender, but my belly was the only thing that was protruding. I had internalized this stigma. I didn't want anyone to know. But then I just said, you know what? I need to embrace this. I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. So I started shopping and buying larger clothes. I couldn't accept that I needed to change from a size 4 to a size 10 or 12.
Oh, yeah.
I used to model, so I was very vain. I just, like, chronologically, my age was 65, but mentally, emotionally, I'm 30. So I try to stay young. So I was looking for clothing that had a flare, because I said, I'm not going to age. I refuse.
Fashionable still.
I refuse to age. So I was able to go shopping and adjust the way I dressed. I was able to buy clothing that were wider but had a flare. It didn't make me look large. I had to make a lot of adjustments, but it's working quite well, you know. The internal stigma, it was there for a while until I said, I have to stop this. And I was able to then talk about living with HIV, living with lipodystrophy, living with everything else that comes with aging and HIV. Um, uh, so
So what have you done to manage your lipo?
to manage my lipo, okay, I was on a diet. I was on a diet and I was exercising, but I saw it wasn't working much. So my doctor suggested Igrifta, which is an injectable medication you use. You have to use it on your belly, next to your navel. Every day you must use a different side. So I was injecting the Igrifta and it was working. It was working for a while, but then I moved and things changed, it shifted, and I stopped it for a while. First of all, Medicaid did not want to pay for it. So
Hmm.
I had to wait until I was 65 years old where Medicare kicked in.
Right.
Medicaid will not pay, didn't pay for it back then. Today, I don't know if they do, but back then they didn't. Medicare pays for it. So I stopped it due to the move, but I was discussing it with my doctor the other day. I want to restart the treatment because now it's only one vial. They've lowered the dose. They made it a lot more easier.
Oh,
It's
good. Good.
one vial. You don't need to
Going to
keep
help you. Yeah.
refrigerated.
Okay.
So I'm really looking into using it again because it helped every day adamantly. I would just inject it and keep going. And I would have red marks because you are going to have marks on your belly.
Right.
But I was willing to do it, just so that I can try and lower this abdomen, this belly fat. It really gets to you. And everybody says look for the inch pinch. I have like a 3-inch pinch. And it's
Right.
hard, it's soft. So I might have a combination of both soft belly and hard belly. But it's been very challenging, but I'm very comfortable now. I'm very comfortable with myself. I'm very comfortable. I've accepted the lipodystrophy. So what I'm going to do now is just go again for the Agrifta injectable treatment. It will help.
Okay. And while you're talking about your general, your self-empowerment and helping other people, do you want to tell us a little bit about your Thriving at 50 Facebook group?
Well, I'm the creator and the facilitator of Thriving at 50 and Beyond. These were groups I did at GMHC, but now due to COVID, I do it on a Zoom platform. I also have a Facebook page, Thriving at 50 and Beyond HIV, because someone else added a same group. So I said, wait, let me add HIV so they could know that's my group. I have over 400 people. I have people from Africa, from Thailand, from Canada. We reach out to each other. They want me to send them the notes of my groups, so I send them the notes of my groups. I'm planning on doing a Zoom with them also. Say hello. We exchange information, stories, resources. We exchange so much information. We just keep in touch with each other. Everyone is a friend. Everyone friends each other. And
So people can look that up at on Facebook. It's called Thriving at 50.
Thriving at 50 and Beyond HIV.
Okay, great. And I see that is in the chat, so you can look at that and click through and go check out Lily's group on.
Yeah, but always maintain positive. I always say, "Whoa, I lost you." I always say, "I lost you." I'm sorry, I touched the room.
No, you're there. You're still on.
I always say, be happy, change what you can, and embrace what you can't change, but make the best of it. Just adjust your lifestyle, be happy, think positive thoughts. Tomorrow's another day of life, and I thank God for always living another day. So when you fall, just shake it off and keep going.
That's a great attitude. Thank you.
Oh, and another thing, 60% of the people living in New York are over the age of 50. We are the veterans, and I demand inclusivity because we need to be included. And I love my young people. I'm always reaching out to my young people. But young people, please reach out to us because we have.
Last I checked, it's like almost 50% of all people living with HIV anywhere in the country, anywhere in the U.S. now are over 50. So that's
over 50.
Big group of you. Okay, so let me remind everybody that we're going to bring Tim back, and you can ask questions of both him and Lillibeth. But first, we are going to have another quick commercial break. Welcome back, everybody. Now we have both Tim and Lillibeth with us today. So a reminder that if you have a question, you can click the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen. I see we've already got several. And if you're watching via Facebook Live, you can use the chat feature. So first, a brief question for Tim. A couple of questions have asked about exercise. You did say that exercise is not always enough to sort of completely resolve fat gain related to lipodystrophy. But what kinds of exercise would generally be recommended for, both for attempting to lose belly fat and for your general overall health?
Yeah, it's just, I think that it always sort of comes down to, to cardiovascular exercise really is absolutely critical. And, I do want to stress that, I think some of the data that we initially saw around, I think that when lipodystrophy was sort of first documented and really became a significant concern for people living with HIV. And just with that, the one point I do want to make is that I think that when we think about lipodystrophy, whether we're talking about lipoatrophy or whether we're talking about lipohypertrophy, there's this thing that it's like, well, it's a cosmetic concern, and that is just patently false. I mean, this is it is a stigmatizing complication. It is a disabling complication. And it is a complication that is associated with that very serious or potentially associated with some very serious health consequences. So, I mean, I think when we're thinking about diet and when we're thinking about exercise, we do know that it can have some impact on the buildup of visceral fat as well as certainly subcutaneous fat. But in many cases, it's just simply not enough to decrease the belly fat, at least to quote unquote healthy levels. But one thing that's really important to stress here is that cardiovascular exercise in particular really has important implications for any cardiovascular disease that might be associated with lipodystrophy, certainly for diabetes as well. So that it's like even if a pharmacologic intervention is used, like Egrifta, which has been discussed a few times now, diet and exercise will continue to be a key feature of a sort of a treatment regimen for lipodystrophy.
Okay, let me ask Lillibeth also, what kinds of diet and exercise and other lifestyle changes have you made since you're dealing with it?
Well, I've changed my diet. I don't eat anything fried. I eat all my foods baked or sauteed in olive oil. You must change. You don't eat anything that has a lot of fat in it. I change my diet. I do exercise. I go on a treadmill. I go on the bike. I use an exercise bike. I do a lot of stretch exercises. I don't overexert myself due to my age. I don't want to overexert myself. I just do comfortable exercises. And I do breathing exercises, pelvic exercises. Yes. Pelvic exercises are very important.
Sticking with it every day is probably the most important thing, rather than how much or how intense you are at any given time.
Yeah, I don't do intense workouts, but I do work out. Yeah, because you need to work out, and I really do. I do stomach crunches also, because I want to bring this down. Mm-hmm. I use a band also to make me sweat it out. Right. I use anything I can. I've even put creams on my stomach that they gave me from Dominican Republic. But yeah, the main thing is eat healthy. I eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, and I do walk a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do exercise, especially now that I'm in the home. Yeah.
Right.
I can't stand this belly, but you know what? I've embraced it.
And that's a good attitude to have.
I've embraced it. I've embraced my AIDS diagnosis. I've embraced it. What can you do? You can't be sad. When you fall down, you just have to shake it off and get up. You do.
Yep. I have another question that possibly for Tim or both of you. Someone has asked, what are the side effects of Egrifta or the potential side effects?
I didn't have any.
You didn't?
I didn't have any side effects. No, the only thing was the needle marks on your belly, but I did not have any side effects at all. And I was alert because I wanted to be alert in case I felt anything different from what I felt daily from my regular medication. But no, I was very lucky. I didn't feel anything at all. I enjoyed doing it. As a matter of, I only stopped because I was moving, so it was too much work. But I'm going back on it. Yeah, I recommend it. I do.
So Tim, do you have any more information about Egrifta side effects?
Well, I think Egrifta, just based on the data that we've seen, is a very well tolerated medication. Just the one thing to be cognizant of that is it is an injectable product. So I just, what I would love to do is I would just love to hear a little bit more from Lillibeth in terms of, what was your experience like injecting yourself with the drug? How was that for you?
Well, in the beginning, it was difficult because I had to remember, oh, I have to inject this drug on my belly, and you could only do it like so far next to your navel. It could only be on your left or your right side. It has to be right there around the navel area. That's the only challenge I wasn't too happy about, because this is something you have to take for the rest of your lifetime. So I said, oh my God, how am I going to do these injectables every day in my navel area? So I would have black and blue, red spots areas, but you have to do things if you want to be successful. So I'm paying, so I get shots for free because this lipoatrophy drives me insane. I haven't been able to see my doctor to get my shots, but I do it because I'm vain, I guess.
So Tim, do you want to say anything briefly?
Everybody says, you're so vain. I don't care. Leave me vain. It keeps me happy.
You want to say anything
myself
briefly about treatments for lipoatrophy?
Yeah.
Sure. So for lipoatrophy, some of the treatments, those really do require some, reconstructive approaches. Unfortunately, we do not have any sort of bona fide pharmacologic interventions for lipoatrophy. So usually, what is required is the injection of facial fillers, and there are some that are permanent. There are many that are semi-permanent. Which to Lillibeth's point, they do require sort of touch-ups.
You need to go back and get another one. Okay.
Yeah, we've really come a very, very long way in the availability of the different facial fillers that can be used. And, I think that they are facial fillers, that are really intended to serve a reconstructive purpose. And these just aren't cosmetic modalities, so to speak. So, unfortunately, that's all that we have available. But a lot of people, Lillibeth included, seem to be responding very, very well to to some of those injectables.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just ask you both briefly. We're almost out of time. So do you have any brief closing comments you want to get in before we say goodbye?
Okay. Write all your questions down before you go see your doctor, because you tend to forget everything. Once you walk through that door, you kind of forget what your questions were. I always write all my questions down because I want to make sure when I walk out of my doctor's office, I walk out informed. I don't like to walk out with any questions or what did he say. Sometimes I even record him. I tell him, I'm recording you. Do you mind?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, when I get home, I forget half the things, And please love yourself. Love yourself. Take your medication every day. Okay? The medications are not as harsh as they were back.
That's for sure.
28 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as hard. The doses are lower. Now you can really. I became resistant to my regimen. So in June, they just gave me some 3 new pills, 3 new regimens, and thank God I take them every day religiously. I do not play. Because when my regimen wasn't working and my doctor said, what's going on? Your viral load's going up. I said, what? I've been undetectable for 14 years. I started to cry. I said, no, you need to help me. You need to help me. I really rely on the doctors. I do. And she gave me a new treatment, and thank God today I've been undetectable again quickly. That's one thing I love about my response. My body responds very quickly to any treatment. you know, so I have a good immune system. Even though it's compromised, I have a very
Right,
good
right.
immune
And you're a testament to how sticking with the medications really.
love yourself and help other people. I love helping people. Um, and anyone who's feeling down, help them. I have someone who calls me up every day and he's very depressed, and I talk to him. I don't care if it's an hour or two. I think you really need that support system. You really do. So just be happy, take your medication, eat well. If you feel you have lipodystrophy or if you feel you have belly fat, speak to your doctor so he can decipher if it's hard belly or soft belly, and he can give you some ideas on what you can do. And a
Great.
grip would be a good step, and so would exercise and diet. That would be a great step. And just keep going, don't stop.
Well, that's an excellent point to end on there. So thank you both, Tim and Lillibeth, for joining us here today. And if you want more information about lipodystrophy, you can look, it's showing on your screen now, POZ.com at home, and we'll be putting up some information about lipodystrophy and resources for finding more information. So thank you both, Tim and Lillibeth, for joining us today. And thank you all for watching, and join us for our next Pause at Home. Thank you and take care.
Thank you. Have a nice day.